This podcast is supported by FX's English Teacher. Last year's critically acclaimed series returns to follow Evan, Gwen, and Marky as they vie for their students' divided attention. See why Cosmopolitan called its premiere season a masterclass of comedy, while Glamour raved it's the year's funniest and most heartwarming new comedy series. FX's English Teacher. All new Thursdays on FX. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast Gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast Gems.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Tom, of the 6 taste profiles of an Indian thali, so I'm talking salty, sweet, sour, bitter, pungent, and heat, which would you be least upset to lose?
Least upset to lose. The one I'd be most upset to lose, I think it's pungent. I think if I lost my sense of smell, that I would lose so much because I think that's so much part of taste. So I'm going to go with, for my least upset, when I'm not losing sleep over, I think I'm going to go with bitter here, Kevin. Bitter is not something I feel like that's almost a negative quality.
No, for me, I'd be most upset to lose salty. Salt is my favorite food. I'd be least upset to lose heat. I'm sorry, I've got an Eastern European colon. Just don't need the heat. This is Pack Your Knives. I'm Kevin Arnovitz.
And I'm Tom Haberstroh.
Tom, we're down to 7 people. We've got some cured fish. We've got Indian thalis. Interesting episode. Also, I think also a particularly interesting episode for just coalescing the field of competitors. You know, we've been talking all season about how much parity there is among the chefs. Hey, it's an open field. Anyone can win. And I got to tell you, I'm actually thinking that there are some real favorites emerging. And I'm not convinced that we aren't seeing a couple juggernauts headed right to the finale. And, you know, the field has really changed since you and I staged our typically terrible draft many weeks ago.
Yeah, and Victoire going home, really sad moment for the show because I think she is up there for fan favorite. Her story, how sweet she is, her talent. I think of all the chefs, she probably has the largest language barrier to overcome, having learned the language English like 4 months ago before shooting. But I don't think I'm stepping over the line by saying, like, I don't think she's been as strong of a chef on this competition as some of the others. And so when we're whittling it down from 7 to 6, we're zeroing in on some of the best performers. And in years past, we might have lost like three really top chefs, no pun intended, in the competition, and felt like, oh man, this thing, we just lost. I mean, maybe Begonia is the best example of that this season. But yeah, Amar, Amar, he had a grand slam this week. I mean, Kevin, how many times do we see grand slams? It's so rare in Top Chef to see a guy or a gal come in and just dominate a quick fire, then dominate the elimination challenge. And I don't think either of us, judging by the draft, felt like Amar was, in that conversation. And you got to put him in there. And Buddha, look, Kevin, I don't know. I kind of felt like Buddha was the favorite going into this week, and he had a really shaky episode, and I think he was deserving of going home this week if it weren't for Gabri and Victoire. We usually say after these episodes, wow, no one screwed up. Such a high bar of technicality, skill. It was just incredible food. This week, it was not.
Well, it wasn't. And actually, I think there's some... The Thali challenge had a lot of interesting features to it that we'll discuss. I mean, I do think you're right. The main story here is Amar. And, we go back to the beginning of the season. And Amar was toward the bottom of our field in the very opening episode. Does a big seared scallop with pickled vegetables. Perfectly fine, but amazed no one. It's easy to forget that in the very first quickfire, Amar and Ali were paired together. If we saw that team now, that pairing, it would be, that's Murderer's Row. They finished in the middle with a pan-roasted sea bass with a kimchi emulsion in the quickfire. I mean, remember, they almost got knocked off for fish and chips they didn't execute correct in week 2, right? So what we're talking about here with Amar is it's one of these cases, and this happens on the show regularly, where a chef kind of finds his or her confidence early and then it just builds. We've seen this, repeatedly on the show. It's a theme. You have the juggernauts that start at the very beginning and just plow through the competition. Amar is one of these chefs where it really built. Like he just, after 2 or 3 weeks, I don't think either of us would have had him his first sort of foray into the top of the field was and it was a real upset, right? Like if you remember, the maroon team of Victoire, Nicole, and Amar. Back in the in the relegation Tottenham challenge, right? Like that was sort of the first indication we got that, hey, Amar might be emerging as a dark horse, but that was really, it was the 4th episode of the show. Like he really, this is a relatively new thing. I mean, it's just, but he is cooking as confidently as anybody we've seen in recent seasons, just every single week, week in, week out. And yes, he does it with an aw shucks kind of humility, but
yeah, which means that we don't take him as seriously. I think part of his aw shucks personality is why I think a lot of us were kind of like, he's just along for the ride and having a good time. Like he's here for S's and giggles, and that's not true. He's here to win this thing, and he can. He's that talented. And so this week proved he has to be at the top, if not near the top, if not at the top of contenders who can win this whole damn thing.
Yeah, and I do think he also exposes like a bias I have, right? Which is and it's a bad bias. I often will underrate chefs that don't reside in that technical kind of part of the Venn diagram. Like what is their defining characteristic as a chef, right? So, for instance, like he does a lot of sweet food. He'll always err on the side of giving us some kind of, what I'll do here is a roasted plantain with miso butterscotch or something, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
the lamb shank that roasts for 39 hours. Yes.
Exactly. Hey, let's braise it overnight, right? Like, and yet you forget, as we saw with his little dots when he did the deconstructed papaya salad, which is, he actually can go to that gear. When he does go, it impresses the judges even more because he's not always screwing around with, liquid nitrogen. And I think for me sometimes, and I did this with Sarah, in handicapping the draft as well, which is, I had her in the middle of my field. Now, partially to defend myself, I did look at kind of past performance, right? One of the reasons I kind of went with some of the picks I went is they dominated their season. And but with Amar and I think Sarah to some extent, I tend to undervalue and underestimate chefs that don't display technicality week in and week out. And that's just clearly a mistake. A, because it has nothing to do with the taste of food. And B, Amar is just he's just so intuitive and he's just rolling, man. I mean, this is one of the great dominating performances, and the fact that it's being done in an all-star season kind of amplifies it even more.
Well, I don't think this is fair, what I do, the bias that I have in my head, but I feel like the personality of Amar and Sarah make them less serious as competitors when I'm just doing a draft. It's almost like I need someone who's as nerdy and serious and takes this stuff like life or death, like Buddha might, that studies Top Chef and has notebooks on notebooks on notebooks and carries 17 molds and ships them to London so that he can compete because he really wants this thing. Like, I may be mistaking Sarah and Amar's just general infectiousness and their charisma for lack of tweezery technicality. I don't want to confuse those two things or say that those are mutually exclusive. When you see Sarah and Amar cook, they're just as skilled as anybody in the competition. They come across as this person you want to hang out with and have a beer with, right? So I feel like that's maybe what we were doing at the draft, is looking at them as maybe perhaps just they're not as technical, or I don't even know what highfalutin chefs, fine dining chefs, when it's very clear that they've had that background, they've worked in those kitchens, and they can bring it. So right off the bat with this quick fire, they got to do kippers.
Yeah, preserved fish. I love preserved fish. Again, Eastern European kind of Jew food. And actually, I was actually shocked that Sarah didn't do some play on the whitefish bagel kind of. I was absolutely convinced. I was like, this is Sarah going to whip out kind of the Southern Jewish thing, and and she did a smoked fish tip that looked delicious. Right. Apparently, it was a little too salty, and you can never pick that up when we're watching. But yeah, it's do something with cured fish. I love cured and preserved fish. It's just one of my favorite things. And by the way, and who was on top? We found, it was Buddha, Amar, and Ali. Ali did one of my very favorite foods, which is tiramisalata, which is when you go actually, let me defer to you, man. You are of the Greek descent. Yes. Tell me about your tiramisalata.
Tiramisalata. Yeah. It, when he said that, I was like, oh, that's going to win. Just so good. And when you look at the idea of this challenge is using the smoked fish as the base or the featured item. It's a perfect way to do that. He did two things with the dried scallop and the smoked fish, where I was confused as why he needed both, but hey, that is a great move by him, and I'm surprised he didn't win the whole thing, because that is an excellent choice.
Yeah, one of the things that makes tiramisalata so good is it's very carby, and so I kind of avoid it often, because you take the fish roe and then you blend it with usually potato, and it just creates this it's like the most delicious mashed potatoes you ever had, but kind of more in a whipped dipped form. And what Ali did, which was very smart, and I'm shocked that more chefs didn't do this on this challenge. It's tomatoes. There's a reason you put tomato on a lox and bagel and cream cheese, or a whitefish and bagel, right? Tomato is this wonderful, bright, acidic contrast to what is a smalty, smoky fish. That can be really rich, right? And so, you just saw, and both judges commented on the brightness, and it was probably one of the reasons he got in the top three. Buddha did, and this was just really gutsy, because I thought it could have been a disaster, but he did this carbonara with onions and kippers, and then did this smoked haddock sauce, and I was like, oh my god, it's rich on rich. But everyone loved it, and it was probably the onions that were able to kind of keep it in check, and it did look delicious.
So I know that Padma said this, the idea of the Buddha's choice to go with cheese and fish is a hard sell, a cheesy dish here with the quickfire challenge. I mean, I love a good smoked salmon and cream cheese on a bagel. Like, I mean, that sounds delicious to me, but it's almost like a taboo to mix cheese with fish. But I kind of feel like, is it overrated, that taboo?
Yeah, I
mixing
think
those
it
two?
is. And also, like, cheese is a big spectrum, right? Like, and also, I mean, at the end of the day, cheese, when you get to certain areas, is just like a cousin of yogurt and butter and everything else, right? Like, there's a reason you put cream cheese on lox. I mean, this is one of the great combinations in the world, right? So it's like, you might not want a freaking Stilton or a triple cream, but I don't have a problem. I mean, carbonara is kind of a funny thing because it's this it's basically bacon, eggs, and cheese. That's all carbonara is: bacon, egg, and cheese. It's but he's so wonderfully creative, and that did look just absolutely delicious, and I wanted it. Like, it just but Amar wins with his smoked haddock salad. His
surprising.
Cucumber
He didn't
potato.
know what he was doing.
He didn't know what he's. By the way, do we know that? I think Amar is a world.
You think it's a little
I think it's
rope-a-dope?
rope-a-dope. I think he's a sandbagger. And I mean this with the utmost compliment. Like, he's, shucks, I'm just here. What do I do? I'm just a guy.
I don't even know what kippers are. What are kippers?
I'm a guy with ketchup on my tie. I'm just a mess here. I'm just playing around. Who the hell knows what I'm doing? And like, the whole time, the guy knows exactly what he's doing. Like, I do think there is an element, and it's one of the reasons his personality is so infectious and he's so likable. But there are times I wonder where the humble braggers actually fooling us all, right? And I do think that I'm getting to the point where Amar cannot continue to finish at the very top of every challenge and convince me that he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Like, he knows,
right.
And I think that's part of it. So the smoked haddock salad, again, cucumber, potato, and the roasted pepper emulsion, just balance. The guy, we talk about this, he's not tweezery, but man, does he understand balance, right? Like, we're talking about a Chef Gregory level of understanding now on these dishes. Even when it's not something that just wows you either because it just looks luscious or techno, it's just, he just has a command of, how do I assemble these components into a dish that's just going to be flawless?
Here's another thing about Amar. He seems to be kind of this truth serum on the show, where something happens where a chef is doing something. We saw, I think it was last week, with Nicole, where he'll like see something and be like, "Oh, I would never do tortellini. Like, that is a bad idea." He did this week with the quickfire with the salt. He made a comment about salt, using too much salt, and then Magical Elves, the production company that does these episodes for Top Chef, they do this thing where they make that like knife sound, the unsheathing of the sword sound, the knife like shing. And like, when something bad happens, or there's almost like a mistake on the show, and they show Sarah throwing some salt onto her dish, and then you hear this like almost like this knife sheath sound, like shing. That's when you know something bad is going to happen. It's going to come back to bite them. And Amar makes the comment about salt. Then Sarah puts the salt on her dish, her smack dip. And I was like, I had in my notes, the sword sound chime. Clue! We saw it when Amar mentioned salt and showed Sarah putting on too much of that salt. And sure enough, there was too much salt on the dish. And I think I almost wish that they didn't put that sound in there, because I wouldn't have, I probably would have been more surprised that it was too salty. But like, I love, Sarah did a, the smoked dip.
I love smoked fish dip, right? Like smoked trout. I'm a
smoked
sucker
rainbow
on
trout here. In North Carolina, the rainbow trout smoke dip is unbelievably good. I mean, when I go visit my in-laws in Waynesville, North Carolina, it's just like, I will eat that by the pound, Kevin. And so when I see her do that, and it was a little too salty, I guess, and they're chugging down the water, I felt so bad, because I just feel like when we talk about the winning dishes, I feel like Sarah had the elements there. Gabri, not his best, the prawn tuile, and of course Sarah with the too salty element. I mentioned the Magical Elves, Kevin. we're actually going to have a co-executive producer of Top Chef, Magical Elves, on the show this week. Thi Nguyen is going to join us later in the episode. We're going to get to her at the back half of the episode. We can't wait to ask her about what it's like to be designing these episodes, the quick fires, the challenges. We're going to learn all about that later. So just a little tease there before we go forward. And then, of course, quick fire's over. We're going to Flora Indica, Indian food, Kevin.
Guest judge is Asma Khan, who just one of the great stories in kind of London cuisine. She's a British-born chef, but was born and raised. She's a British chef, but born and raised in Calcutta. Also has a law degree and a PhD in British constitutional law. Woo! So, like a decade or so ago, the story with Asma Khan is she's doing like pop-ups before pop-ups became kind of like really, really big. They've been around forever. I mean, chefs have done kind of one-off events and irregular events for ages, but she started doing these kind of supper clubs and doing Indian food. And they became very popular among a certain kind of elite set of the London food scene. And they became more and more popular to the point where a few years later, she got the backing to actually open her own place, which becomes Darjeeling Express. So she is just kind of a fascinating woman. She's in her 50s. Again, like she's an intellectual. She went to SOAS, London. I mean, she's a freaking PhD in constitutional law, but just loved cooking. And much of the story, and she didn't really get into it, but one of her issues is that she has talked very candidly about sort of family. There's an unfortunate tradition where often if families have their second child is a daughter after their first child was a daughter, there's a degree of unhappiness, and she has actually populates her kitchen generally with all female staff. Often, she points out with women who are second daughters. And that's very much part of her identity as well. Wow. And so she's just kind of built this, into cookbooks now. And she is just sort of one of the luminaries of cuisine, but kind of just did it her way. Again, coming as a lawyer and a PhD, cooking for love and creating a supper club that became like one of the hottest things in London. So she is the guest judge for a challenge that is deceptive because on the surface, Tom, a thali, we learn is, a thali is, and I've actually never been to India, but I've been to Sri Lanka, and it's like it's a lot of Tamil cooking where it's just, you get like it's a big platter, and it looks like one of these group plates where, everyone dig in, but it's actually each person gets their own, where it's like you have little compartments and 6 little dishes, and then you
have your own buffet where it's like, all right, I've got everything here in front of me. Now I can just pick and choose and mix and match and all that.
It's a micro buffet. It is a micro buffet is what it is. What I didn't know until it was explained is in a thali, you want 6 different properties, which we teased in our little question at the beginning. You want sweet, you want a salty, you want a hot, you want a pungent, you want a bitter, and you want a sour. And those should be represented. They can kind of commingle. It doesn't mean that there are 6 dishes and each one represents one. You can kind of mix and match, but it is kind of the full breadth of life and the full breadth of sensory experience as a human being, both emotionally and in terms of the palate. And so it does have all this kind of great, almost a narrative quality.
Yeah, I think I'm not really sure the difference between sour and bitter. Sour, it makes you. Sour. The bitter beer face is what I remember as a kid, is watching the Coors Light commercials. I think it was Coors Light, right? The ads.
But think about like arugula is bitter, but citrus is sour.
Yeah. Okay, because I was like, I felt like those are almost neighbors on this spectrum. Is that like you want some bitter and you want some sour, and I kind of felt like they were cousins, and I was like, okay, so that's 6 different elements on the platter. On top of that, Kevin, there's a lot of dishes here. It's not just that you have to hit all the different elements. You have to produce like 5-6 plates, and we saw Buddha here really struggle with that. He forgot to put the chicken. Was it chicken masala that he had that he forgot to put on chicken karai that he forgot to put on Padma's plate, and it almost sent him home. And it was a really challenging challenge.
Yeah,
so the difficulty on this, the bar, the skill level, the time management, the knowledge of the different flavors, ingredients. It was, as far as I can tell, and I'm going to ask T about this later, is the idea of like, man, this, I don't know if this was like supposed to be a group challenge, because it just seemed like this was a huge ask for them to do, that quickly.
Yeah, what I meant by deceptive was it's sort of a time management challenge masqueraded as an Indian food challenge, right? I mean, that to me was sort of the great takeaway. It obviously that you wanted to make Indian food, or as Sarah brilliantly did, kind of use Indian ingredients to express the full breadth of your particular culinary tradition in a thali. But really, it's, hey, who here can pull off 6 really well-formed dishes in 2.5 hours, right? Like, that's the challenge. It was really a time management challenge.
That's
was really
6 quick fires. It's 6 dishes
right, exactly.
that you make in 30 minutes each.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, can you do 6 quick fires? And by the way, and because of spice, and because you're dealing with, and this is where, Victoire ran into trouble. Like, you also have to kind of, quote, nail your protein. And Indian food tends to be very stewy, right? It is sort of soaking up flavors to the extent that you have these proteins. You're doing it really one of 2 ways. You're either doing tandoori or kind of as part of a larger kind of saucy stew. And in fact, to the extent that Cabri ran into trouble, right, it's that his protein was just slapped down in a sauce, right? He just went with those scallops.
Man, he ran into a lot of trouble. There wasn't one thing wrong with that plate. Right. It was a smorgasbord, no pun intended, smorgasbord of problems with Cabri.
So, let's go through it. Real quick, because I just think it was, we had on the top the kind of Amar, Ali, Sarah. And it was Ali dazzled as always.
Chutney.
His mango chutney is regarded as, his mango chutney had a very prestigious table of Indian chefs swooning.
Maybe the best chutney they've ever had.
Right. The Jordanian guy just knocks it out of the park. And chutney is, among people who are into chutney, it is one of those things where it is such a staple of Indian cuisine that it was interesting to watch the chefs. It's funny. You have all these dishes going on, and yet rice and chutney became very much a measure of competence. Yes. I think that's always interesting, right? Because rice is sort of like, it's a throw-in, right? You got to have the starch there.
The range of rice in this was fascinating to me. I thought that would be a walk in the park.
Exactly. And that was sort of my impression as well, which is like the rice and chutneys really got, that is something, you can talk about the dal and who executed well and where the spice profiles were, but it's like, in terms of measuring competence, like rice and chutney were very much dictating, what was going on. To a lesser extent, the raita, right? The yogurt sauce. But it was like Sarah dazzled with her dirty rice that used lamb stock. Buddha, who is one of our, one of the great ironies and tragedies is like, he is one of the great technical chefs who's ever graced the screen on Top Chef, and yet just screwed up his rice. Just like wasn't paying attention.
This is Steph Curry missing 2 free throws.
Exactly.
It's just like, what? Wait,
exactly.
You're the best shooter ever. How are you going to miss? You're unguarded. You're staring at the rim. You're not moving, and you miss 2 free throws. What?
Yeah, and you're a Southeast Asian chef, right? And so so I think it was just interesting how like Ali. It seemed like the mango chutney by Ali was the literally 7 times 6, 42 components that were on the damn table. Mm-hmm. Was ranked number 1. And it looked like Sarah's dirty rice was there. Also, even Gabri, who finished on the bottom, he got what do they love of his? Remind me. There was his was it his green?
His kucha char. I'm butchering it, but I think it was
mango cucumber, the salsa, right?
Yeah,
that thing that and
that kept him in the competition because he had at least he salvaged his meal with at least one dish that they loved, which I think Victoire did not, and I think that's why she was sent home, is because there wasn't really a highlight on her plate. And just real quick, Sarah, I think she always, you can feel that Paducah on every plate that she does.
Right.
And for this, it just seemed she was so confident and Ali was so confident. And yet Buddha, when he presented the dish to the judges table, it was really just a total lack of confidence. He was, as I think Tom said, as soon as he realized that he didn't put the chicken on the plate for Padma, it looked like he was completely flustered. And it really shined through Sarah. I thought she actually should have won this episode because of her dirty rice seemed to be just on, right up there with Ali's chutney. But like, man, it was a lot about confidence. You could almost feel who was going to win that challenge.
Yeah, Sarah, Sarah, this is where I think she's so strong. And I think this was true in her first season in Kentucky and now here is one of the great themes of Top Chef is, and particularly this season, for obvious reasons, is that food is a lingua franca, right? Is that, hey, it is something that kind of unifies the world. Everyone eats, that even among disparate cultures, there are these commonalities with cuisine, both what they do emotionally in terms of often ingredients. And Sarah is so good at sort of, while still honoring the basis of the challenge, which is, hey, we are making thalis. This is an Indian food challenge. Yeah. But can I introduce elements of my culinary tradition into the overall scheme and still kind of come up with something that's unified? It's not like a Frankenstein Southern American / Indian series of dishes. It is actually all in one. And so, you know what? Thunder and Lightning is this great kind of cucumbery, peppery, tomato raw veg salad that you find on picnic tables in the South. It's very similar to this element that is always found in thalis. Great. Let's combine them. Rice, but let's sort of dirty it up. I mean, dirty Southern rice is just this wonderful thing. And can I bring sort of a brighter, kind of a persimmon to the chutney? And she just does that so brilliantly, and it's always unified. It always both honors her tradition and the one that's hard to do. I mean, we saw, unfortunately, starting in like the early 2000s, we saw this spat of just bad fusion cuisine in America, right? And you go to these restaurants trying to capitalize on fusion, mm-hmm. and instead it was kind of Frankenstein, right? It was just sort of like, let's take the worst of two culinary traditions and combine them. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it kind of works, but it's not as seamless as it should be. And she's just so good at that. So I'm with you. Amar got 30 extra minutes. And while the judges insisted it wasn't the reason, it probably wasn't, he just kind of scored. And I mean, crab curry is one of those dishes, Tom, whether you're eating it in Southern India, whether you're eating it in Thailand, crab curry is just a freaking great dish. And if you can pull it off in a thali while other people are just kind of checking boxes, you're going to win. And he won. He had that green mango raita as his sour, his tandoori sweetbreads. Well, the other thing he did that I noticed, and I think this is where the time did help, is in terms of textures, it was just so diverse. Like the fact that he got a real grill on his tandoori sweetbreads, but he also got like a saucy curry, but he also got kind of a sour raita. Like he had 6 very diverse dishes, and I don't mean diverse in terms of ethnic cuisine. I mean diverse in terms of a tandoori is just a different experience than eating a raita, right? You want the hot clay oven next to the dish with the yogurt, next to the dish with the curry, and there's a reason Amar won, and that was, I think, the reason. It was just like 6 fully formed dishes, which I have to imagine the extra 30 minutes contributed to.
He was very Draymond in this episode, where he's just good at just about everything.
Yeah.
He was so, like defense, offense, dribbling, passing, leadership. Just like he was just so on top of it. And yes, his personality, like we talked about last week, was more Klay Thompson. Just like the positive. Just everyone loves this guy and locker room favorite. But man, the skill and the confidence, he, said in his like confessional at the end when he won, I'm Dominican, for Christ's sakes. How did I just pull this off? Winning the Indian Thali challenge and then the Kippers challenge earlier. He has this oh shucks attitude. He felt like, I think he would say he falls ass backwards into winning sometimes, but no, the fact that he pulled off that the shrimp and crab curry that just wowed everybody, and then had 5 other outstanding dishes. And it wasn't like the 30 minutes sealed the deal for him. He obviously enjoyed that luxury, but I thought that I pegged this, Kevin, before we got the answers. I pegged it as Sarah winning and Gabri going home. And the only thing that changed was that judges table, when they discussed Victoire's dish, it really shined through that Gabri and Buddha, I think, had the biggest disqualifying dishes. Like the fact that they had really low lows. The fact that Buddha didn't complete all of his dishes. The fact that and had really poor rice. And Gabri, just like 3 dishes just completely fell apart. That wasn't their downfall. Surprisingly, that wasn't their downfall. Victoire just didn't hit anything. And she goes home. I was surprised by that. Did you have Victoire going home before the judges table? Because I was surprised that she went home and not Gabri.
No, actually, I did, and I thought Gail Simmons, as she often does, sort of captured in one comment the reason, right? Which is, hey, at the end of the day, as much as Gabri and Buddha had those lows, as you say, they each cooked one element that was undeniably delicious, I think is the way she termed it, Gail did. And at the end of the day, there was not one element on Victoire's Thali that wowed. Right. She didn't make a delicious thing. And I do like it's sort of, I guess, one of the great debates at the judges table that I imagine we don't always get to see the full range of debate, which is, what do you do in a situation like that? Do you send home the person who had the lowest lows, or do you send the person who had the lowest highs? Right. Is it a floor or a ceiling competition? Right. And I think, to the credit of Top Chef and the judges, I think they sort of mix it up. Right. They oftentimes, hey, there is a culinary crime so severe that it is unforgivable, and that person has to go home. It doesn't matter if they did something else well. Let me ask you this. If Buddha didn't put the chicken or the protein on any of the judges' tables and just didn't plate that at all, would that have been disqualifying? The fact that he missed it on one of the judges, I think, saved him. Because usually those things are just automatic disqualifiers. Oh, the challenge was to put 6 elements on the dish and you only put 5? Like, and by the way, how hilarious is it that the person he forgets is Padma? Like, just like they bring it out, like it could have been one of those other dudes, right? Like that we didn't.
That's why he saw a ghost. Is like, oh, not only did I forget to put it on someone's plate, it was Padma on the Indian challenge. So, so that's what I'm surprised. You know, Tom also had a great line where they were talking about Victoire's dishes, and he says, "Yeah, that's great, but the rice was overcooked." Yeah. Like he had just this really sharp jab that I think cut right to the heart of why Victoire was sent home. Was just like, yeah, all those ideas are great, but the rice was overcooked. Come on, people.
And I have to respect the decision, Tom. I like the goal of eat. I feel like when we go out and dine, it is really about the highs. To me, are more important than the lows are bad, if that makes sense, right? The things I remember most are the amazing dishes you've had over the years, right? And yeah, you always remember a true screw up, but you know, the fact that the rice didn't hit, to me, is less important than, hey, Buddha put something on that dish that was transcendent. And I just think that's kind of that's sort of the mango, saffron, and coconut pudding apparently was one of the highlights of the night.
Yeah, and I was really worried for Buddha because he was really scrambling. There were a few things that not only did he screw up the rice for the first time since he said it, I think he was a teenager. That was, I just kept feeling like this was sort of foreboding, like, oh, this is it for Buddha. And then Gabri just, I just feel, it's not that I enjoy watching him screw up. That's not, it's just there's this like element of, it's not cartoonish, but it was just
it is one thing.
It was one thing after another. Just, oh no, I overcooked. I burnt my beans. Okay, well at least I got lentils. I can throw in the lentils. Oh no, I burnt my lentils. It was just, oh man, I just wanted to give him a big hug. And speaking of hugs, Victoire goes home, but she did get a huge hug from Asma Khan, and she just seems. I don't know what it is about this season, and maybe T can shed light on it. Just the guest judges that they've had this season have been fantastic. Awesome. Both just like from a food culinary icons to just great judges and great people, that warm people that they seem to have this magnetic energy about them. And you can't say that, for an intellectual academic like Asma Khan, that you didn't just want to like sit around and just listen to her talk and just want to give her a big hug. Like that was when Victoire told her story to Asma and then just got that moment with her. I was like, oh, that was really special for Victoire. She's going to hold on to that hug for a very long time. And so I'm sorry to see Victoire go home. But she lasted a lot longer in this competition than I think a lot of viewers at home expected, given the language barrier. But she was fantastic, and I'm going to miss her. And she's going to go to Last Chance Kitchen, where I'll do a recap later, but I was sad to see Victoire go home. Amar wins, Victoire goes home. I had another big week, Kevin, on the Top Chef Fantasy.
Yes, you did.
I don't know. You lost another competitor in the Last Chance Kitchen with Nicole going home. And Kevin, you've got Buddha and Tom and Gabri. Gabri's been really scuffling as of late. I feel like this is Buddha or bust for you.
Yeah, it is Buddha or bust. And, Gabri hasn't gotten on the board any of the past 2 weeks. And Nicole's salt, actually, this is kind of the week of over salting.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little, I thought it was a particularly interesting and just suspenseful.
Yeah, Charbel and Nicole did a roots pasta challenge with Tom, and Nicole does a Parisian gnocchi with Jerusalem artichoke, leek fondue with lemon. Charbel does a ravioli with parsnip, brown butter, sage, and toasted pumpkin seeds. The pasta was okay. I was surprised that he won this challenge given the review from Tom, but Tom, who's always hitting people for not having seasoning or unseasoned food, just hammered Nicole for her salt. And she does this kind of cardinal sin, which I did not know, is that you never pour salt from the bottle or from the container when you're pouring it into a pot. You always do it with your fingers or your hands so that you don't oversalt and it just kind of dumps into your dish like a waterfall. And that's what happened. Did you know about this? She's like, I haven't poured salt into a container in years. And why didn't I use my fingers? I didn't realize that this was such a taboo.
It's sort of like one of the great things of cooking, right? I mean, salt is just you have to be careful. It's just the difference between too much salt and the right amount of salt is minor. I mean, salt is really strong. I'm such a salt whore,
by the way. I love
you and
salt.
I both, right? Like it's one of my close friends in the world. He and I always forgot, but like he reminded me last time we were together that when he asked me in our first hangout like 20 years ago, he's like, I asked you what your favorite food was. You remember what you said? I said no. He's like, you said salt. So I love salt, but yeah, it is something you just have to be. And I've done that a million times as an amateur kitchen chef. Like I've oversalted things just by being completely, because it's like kind of a pain in the ass. Like your hands are all dirty and like maybe they're wet because you've been cutting the tomato or whatever. And then it's like, you don't want to put the salt in your hand and then, sprinkle it daintily over the dish. And it's just, you eyeball it and then it all of a sudden comes out of the container. And it's like, it isn't. I just felt for Nicole at that moment, right? Because she's an advanced chef and she knows, and she knew the minute she did it. This wasn't a case of what an idiot. She knew exactly, and she called it. And we've all been there. Like anybody who's in a kitchen has done that, where you're lazy. I do that with my you're lazy with a spice. You don't want to measure it out. You don't want to get the teaspoon thing is wet and then it's going to stick. So I'll eyeball it. And then she did, and she eyeballed it incorrectly.
Yeah. And she goes home. It was tough to see. And yes, we did get a peanut gallery here with Sylvia and Dale, but a real low usage rate for Sylvia. Just didn't have all the commentary, maybe just cutting room floor. Hopefully Nicole kind of gets a little bit more feedback from Sylvia, because she was there, but didn't get as many clips as I was hoping for. So we continue on. Charbel is still in the catbird seat for Last Chance Kitchen. He's going to face off against Victoire. For next week, we will have that review. But going into episode 11, we've got 4 more, 11, 12, and 13, 14. we're coming into the round, the stretch here, Kevin. And when we have the power rankings on the board, I feel like, from an overall point system, Ali has 50 points. He's leading the crew. Then you have Amar at 45, Buddha 43, Sarah 33. And then you're looking at basically Gabri
Tom at
in
30.
the back at 22.
Tom at 30.
Tom at 30.
Tom's
That's right.
kind of the forgotten man. He finished both in the middle of the quick fire and was the one person, because it's like the funny thing about 7 contestants on any set when it gets down to 7 is like you have the 3 on the top and you have 3 on the bottom, and you have like just the orphan who is just sitting there kind of, I finished in 4th. I am the 500. I won 41 games and I am a 7 seed. I am whatever it is. It's like he's sort of the forgotten man. Like the irony is because he's had some very polarizing weeks where he's been like, you would have won, but instead
he's the
you
Washington
didn't get your
Wizards just every year at 45 wins and 8 seed. Yeah.
But Tom was sort of just the forgotten man this week, and which is, there are worse things than to never be on the bottom, right? But he didn't make the top either. Next, I have to say, Tom, and before I want to get your closing thoughts, but we're down to 6. And there are 3 teams of 2, and it is going to be double elimination. At least that's how it's sold. Now, I don't know if there's one of these, but you can get back in, one of you 2, if you face off in Last Chance Kitchen. But that is insane. And we did see, I saw that my guy, my last hope, Buddha, is paired with Gabri, which is a very interesting pairing because of all the things we just said. So I have to say, I am really looking forward to this. I don't love double elimination because invariably it seems like someone has to pay for the sins of their teammate. And that's just a terrible way to go home, particularly this late in the competition. But I do love it for the sheer stakes. And I love it for the potential kind of watching the personalities mesh or not mesh. Like Gabri is just what a lovely young man. And Buddha is a lovely young man, but they are stylistically very different in the kitchen. And I'm fascinated to see this pairing. And it's kind of hilarious that I will have a team of just all team Kevin, and you will have an all team tall team Haberstroh. And then there will be this one hybrid team. Yeah.
And I think the good thing about Gabri and Buddha, there's no role power dynamic there. Like, I kind of feel like they both know who's going to be running the show and who's going to be kind of the sous chef there, who's the Batman and Robin in that sense. So like, you got that going for you, Kevin. Like there's not going to be a taking turns, Tom and Buddha trying to figure out who's the alpha in that relationship, in that pairing. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be great. And I think we do have the 6. Gabri's kind of he's still hanging on by a thread in this competition, but I'm glad to see that the field is what it is outside of Begonia. I don't think I'm ever going to get over the fact that Begonia went out as early as she did. No, you have performed very well, and I drafted just damn poorly this year. Although I still like something about Nicole's departure just doesn't feel right. Like she was fine until she wasn't, and literally in 2 weeks, 2 errors and gone. Gone from everything. And I just feel like I haven't seen there's been very few instances in the last couple of seasons where someone just was sort of cruising along and then bam again. And that's disappointing because I do think Nicole's a very good top chef contestant. All right. So that's our recap of the episode. But we have Thi Nguyen coming in here for our guest this week. Can't wait to talk to her right now.
Listener, listen up. This is important. Okay, I'm going to try to save you some money here. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. You may think like, oh, that's bad. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Here's why I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for $15 a month. You heard that correctly. $15 per month. Ditch overpriced wireless and the jaw-dropping monthly bills. And of course, there are all these hidden fees and stuff, but at Mint Mobile, plans start at $15 per month. All the plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text. You're not doing like weekend and nighttime minutes or anything like that. And it's delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone. Don't have to get a new phone. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. I switched months ago. People have asked, did you actually switch? Yes, I actually switched months ago, and I don't know what to do with all this extra money. I've cheated the system here. I've rigged something. This is an Ocean's 11 situation where I'm stealing wireless from Mint. That's how good a deal it is. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/dings. That's DINGS. That's mintmobile.com/dings. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Hello, listener. It's Producer Maze here to talk to you about Quince and their cookware. Cooler nights mean cozy meals at home, and Quince's cookware has made fall cooking so much more enjoyable. Their pieces deliver the quality and performance of luxury brands, but at a price that makes sense. And they look gorgeous on the stovetop, too. No matter what item you need to complete your kitchen, Quince has you covered. With 5-ply stainless steel pots and pans, nonstick skillets, chef-quality knives, and even ceramic bakeware, which is perfect for cozy casseroles or Sunday roasts. And when you look at these prices, you might think, how is Quince doing this? How do they deliver high-quality items similar to high-end brands that are half the price? Well, let me tell you, they partner directly with ethical top-tier factories to cut out the middlemen and pass the savings on to you. And it's not just cookware. I got myself some bath sheets. That's right. When you're a tall man, you have to use bath sheets, not bath towels from Quince. It's like drying off with a cloud. It's incredible. Upgrade your kitchen for cozy fall meals with premium cookware from Quince. Go to quince.com/dings for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/dings, DINGS, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dings. Hello, listener. It's Producer Maze here to talk to you about Kindred. Now, close your eyes like Owen Wilson during a job interview and imagine a way to travel that feels personal, comfortable, and connected without the price tags and the sterile feelings of hotels or short-term rentals. Now open your eyes and stop using your imagination because Kindred has made it very real. That's exactly what they do. Kindred is a members-only home swapping network. It's not a hotel. It's not a short-term rental. It's a smarter way to travel where each stay feels like home. Here's how it works. With Kindred, your home is your ticket. You earn credits by hosting fellow Kindred members, and then you use those credits to stay in over 220,000 homes in more than 100 cities worldwide. There are no hotel costs or rental fees, just the credits that you've earned. Every stay comes with white glove service, 24/7 trip support, and $100,000 in host protection. Make it easier for you to travel and enjoy yourself and not worry about details. I've used Kindred and I found an amazing home for a weekend getaway in an idyllic location with amazing views and great ambiance. It had everything I needed. And the best part was, it cost me $0. So apply now at livekindred.com and use code DINGS to join for free. Plus, you'll earn 5 nights of travel credit just for signing up. That's right, that's 5 whole nights for free at livekindred, KINDRED.com, code DINGS, DINGS, livekindred.com, code DINGS.
This episode is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' new film, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Golden Globe winner Jeremy Allen White and Academy Award nominee Jeremy Strong. Scott Cooper, the director of the Academy Award-winning movie Crazy Heart, brings you the story of the most pivotal chapter in the life of an icon, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Only in theaters October 24th. Get your tickets now.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
So exciting, Kevin. We have have Thi Nguyen, who's a co-executive producer of Magical Elves, Top Chef. She's behind the scenes working on Top Chef, kind of like when we talk to contestants, hey, we want to bring on a producer to explain kind of like the ins and outs of putting this together, like coaching up the competitions and dreaming up and designing and being, helpful on the set. Thi's name keeps coming up. And so we reached out and wanted to get her on the show. And here she is. I'm so excited to have her on. Thi, welcome to Pack Your Knives.
Thank you for having me. I'm really just so excited to be here. And I love how you guys break down everything, because that's what we do behind the scenes. We're breaking down how we do things. And it's so lovely to hear how you guys think we break things down.
Are we accurate? Do we know what we're talking about?
I would say good, 50-50. It's always really interesting to hear it and go, I think we are thinking a little bit too much into things, but you give us sometimes more credit than we deserve. How about that?
All right, so it all balances out at the end.
Yeah.
What is, and I'm going to ask you kind of a 40,000 foot question at the beginning. In assembling a great 52 minutes of Top Chef or however long an episode is, like, what are the essential ingredients? Like, if you were sort of just declaring a manifesto for your successor and like you're leaving Top Chef to the next generation, like what are the absolute do's and don'ts for assembling a great hour of Top Chef?
Well, I think it comes down to, for me, it's we try to think like a chef, right? And I'm not saying that I have any culinary background. I mean, I like to eat. I've been into many restaurants. I've traveled enough, but we really just try to think like the chef and what's going to really just, push their limits. I mean, they're all at the top of their game. They all come in with, obviously a lot of them are like very specific to what their culinary background is. And Top Chef takes it to another level. We multiply it by, here's every single thing we can throw at you, every different cuisine or style or something you're going to learn. And so all we can think of is, how do we push them? How do we challenge them? How do we make them think outside the box? And how do we keep them on their toes? So whenever we come up with the ideas and what we're pushing them to do and their creativity, it really comes down to like, what are we going to allow them? How are we going to push them? And what is that experience we're going to give them on Top Chef that they won't get anywhere else? And you find that, and you start to hear that a lot too through the chefs. They're always like, you would never do this otherwise, unless you're on Top Chef. I would never feed this person unless I was on Top Chef. So things like that, to keep it like really it's just how do we challenge them and how do we push them outside their comfort zone? And that's just the basis of it. And then, really what helps is every season you go to how we keep it fresh and new is you go to a different city, you go to a different location, and you really embrace what they're doing there. What's the food culture? What's the people like? What's the history? And then you try to weave that into the challenges and the food, and that's the basis of all of it. And then and then also just comes down to the chefs. We really try to find chefs with different voices and different opinions, and that really just bring in a different flavor. And that's the beauty of it. It's just like this melting pot on the show. And that's how we kind of develop our creative every single season.
Yeah, when I look at this season, the personalities so diverse, the cuisines, the culinary backgrounds super diverse. But you're not just dreaming up kind of the challenges, but you're there, right, during shooting.
Yeah, we're there from start to finish. So I come in, when I come in, we start developing the challenges, we start creating them, we start, we find out where we're going, we visit that city, we meet with the people. There's
a scouting trip? That's fun.
There is a scouting trip. Yes. That's part of the most fun parts of the show, is really just exploring what that city has to offer, whether we're working with tourism or we reach out to local chefs, we do a lot of research. And it's pretty much like a scout on crack, because we're trying to fit everything in within the limited time that we have. And then what we take back from that is then we start to explore more of the ideas. And we will go in with ideas, already doing research. But once you come back from that place, then you really feel inspired, and you can really then hone in on like, this is what makes sense. this is what we think will be good for the season. And it's just putting it all together. It's one big puzzle, and it's always changing. It's always evolving. There's things that come up later that we find. But by the time we get into the season, pretty much that we try to have everything laid out and mapped out already so that, because as you can see, there's a progression in the season. We try to make things more difficult as it gets through.
Challenge producing is such a huge part of reality competition. And there is one challenge this season that it's funny. I watch the show sometimes with my partner who comes in and out. He doesn't watch every episode. He is a fan, but not a mega fan. And this was a couple weeks ago. It was the Fast and Furious challenge, where the show made this kind of unusual decision, which is take something that's traditionally a very procedural, quick-fire mise en place. Like, yeah, who really wants to watch people shell peas or French lamb chops? And you decided to make it the basis of the elimination competition. And we looked at each other like 15 minutes in, and we're like, is this the most riveting television you've like, there's something about it. And it was just, and it kind of struck me is when people want to understand, why does Top Chef win awards and why is it so compelling? Why do people who love it just really love it? And I wanted to ask you kind of to take us through kind of the conversation behind the scenes, in terms of from brainstorming and conception. You obviously have this kind of cross promotion you need to do for the studio's film. But like, that's a big swing, is to take something that is traditionally just a quick fire. There's not a lot of theme to mise en place. It's very procedural, and turn it into what I thought was some of the best television Top Chef has ever given us. So I wanted
there was a draft. There were teams.
Yeah, but even like watching these stuff, and I wanted to kind of, what was that? I love hearing behind the scenes, sort of what was the conversation among producers like to say like, okay, this is how we're going to basically structure the hour.
Well, yeah, when it came to the Fast 10 challenge, I mean, if you think about it, it was fast, it was furious, there was a lot of rush and adrenaline throughout that entire challenge, right? Which is just in line with what the movie is about. And, when they asked us to come up with ideas for Fast 10, at the time, the movie was they're still shooting parts of it. So a lot of it was like, well, we didn't have too much information on the movie itself because they were protecting, rightfully so, their IP and not wanting anything to leak. But for us, it was just, okay, well, we know the movie, we know the gist of it, we know that there's cast coming back, we knew, the concept. So we just said, what made sense in our world of food and cooking that aligns with a movie that's about, about cars and chases and explosion, all those things. And we noticed that I think last season we didn't have a mise en place, if I recall correctly, in Houston, right? And we know that's one of our favorites, a fan favorite challenges. And another fan favorite was, I think we were missing was the blind taste one. I think we forgot. We didn't do
yes. That's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah. And we try to keep everyone on their toes, like, right. Everyone knows the game. So you don't want to do the same thing over and over again. So we make those decisions like, okay, well, we might not do it this season, but we'll bring it back another season. So for this season, we go, well, we haven't done a mise en place race. Why don't we just put it on, just multiply it and put on steroids and turn it into an elimination challenge? And I think it did. I thought it really aligned well with what the movie was too. And I will say, I have to shout out one thing. When you watch that episode, there's the monitor that comes in and it kind of speeds into the kitchen.
Yes.
That was the big reveal, like, for them. And I remember thinking, okay, because we always think about every little thing, like, how are we going to reveal the challenge? What's the setup? What's the display? Where's everybody standing? So down to like the lights that were underneath their stations, one of our producers came up with that idea and said, why don't we make it look like a stoplight, to give it some kind of effect in there. so that was one thing. And then when the monitor came in, I remember our director was going, why don't we just have the monitor come in and like speed in? And I was like, is that going to be cheesy? Is that going to work? And he's like, yeah, let's just try it. If we don't love it, then we don't have to keep it. I watched it. I go, oh my God, thank you, Ari. That was hilarious. I just thought it worked really well. I was like, you know what? I know when I'm not right. So you know what? Good job. It's a very collaborative effort at the end of the day, down to all the little details. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm watching and I'm like, all right, I hope we get a mise en place this season. And that one was just outrageous. And the whole team concept, the drafting, the scoring system. Was that in terms of difficulty of like putting our heads together to see how you can pull this challenge? Was that right at the top this year so far?
That was in that one particular, again, without having too much details, we're like, how do we make this align with the films? And we go, you know what? There's 9 films. That's why we have so many 9 chefs. We're like, let's do team challenge. It makes sense. And then let's use ingredients that was reflective of each country that it was shot in. And there's multiple countries in each movie, but we would select just to make sure that there's a variety. And if you look very closely, I think each round we did a fruit, a vegetable, and a protein. And whether they caught on to that or not, because the reveal happens in moment for them. And if they're calculating in their heads, oh, there's a protein in every round, there's a fruit in every round, there's a vegetable, they might have I think they started to realize, ooh, there's only one protein. And that was it became Buddha's, their team. I remember they kept trying to take all the proteins always. And then you see Sarah's team and stuff going, we need to have a protein at the end of this. And then they won that lamb round. So little things like that, we were thinking through and going, okay, how do we make this feel like there's going to be a strategy if they pay attention to what they're actually missing? And then those are ingredients that are reflective of the places the movie has taken place at. So it ties all in and makes sense. But still, at the end of the day, they need to be able to make a dish. But then what we put in the pantry too, we think about all these very in detail. What's going to be in the pantry? What should we limit them so that it is challenging? Because you just don't want to give them the world and then they could just make anything they want.
That's right.
Yeah. And then, we were, at the end of the day, it's a challenge that we had so much fun with. I think they had fun with, and it was just, what I do on the show is part of my job is I do the rules. So I always say I'm the police of the show. And what I do is there's a lot of money. I tell them this whenever I introduce myself, I'm like, this is my job, is that there's a lot of money on the line. And my job is to make sure that every step you guys take in this competition is fair, and that everyone has the equal footing to win that prize, whether it's the big prize or the small prize. So there are things that we do, rules that you guys don't have to see.
What are violations that you would have to do in the middle of a taping? Is what is a violation of the rule that you'd be like, hey, Amar, you gotta keep in mind this, or Sarah, you did this, or is it just telling them the rules ahead of time and making sure they stick to it?
Yeah, it's just, we tell them the rules ahead of time. We explain it to them. They ask their questions. Everyone has to hear the same question and answer, just so it's fair. And then, during the challenge, when we're watching, if someone's using, let's just say, an ingredient that they weren't supposed to access a certain part of the pantry, we'll say, hey, you're not supposed to touch that. And they're they don't realize it, and that's it.
Right.
And then as long as they stop. But for this, when I was explaining the rules, it's just a lot. It's 3 rounds, 3 ingredients, this much time. This is the city, but you won't know what it is. And you've got to feature the ingredient, but you can use the ingredients more than one dish. So there's a lot of just explaining to them and making sure that they understand before going into the competition. And then, once they're cooking, sometimes it goes out the door because there's just so much going on in their heads.
So this week we got the Queen Elizabeth little moment of remembrance, and the shout out to that moment when you're taping this and Queen Elizabeth passes away, one of the most important people on planet Earth, most recognizable, means so much to the people in UK, and it was a huge, global event that happened. Last week we had Restaurant Wars, and I apologize if you listened to last week's episode. We were pretty harsh on the fact that it really didn't feel like Restaurant Wars, and now we see that the Queen's passing happened. I'm wondering, T, did that happen during the Restaurant Wars week, and then you had to kind of audible, or were you saying, hey, this is going to be Restaurant Wars this year, and it might not be a traditional Restaurant Wars, but we like that?
It's 2 things. Yes. One, the Queen's passing really impacted our production, greatly impacted it. Just over, it was about 7 days of mourning, and it's just, we had to pivot all the time, where we're shooting, how we're doing things. And ultimately it was also, half of our crew were locals. So they were all they're from the UK. And, immediately when the Queen's we were like, okay, she might pass. We spoke to all of our crew and said, if this is something that, you need to mourn, because a lot of people were going to mourning, we're like, we understand that, we respect that. And if you need to take that time to do that, we understand that. But then on our side, we had to figure out, like, if people are going to do that, which we wanted to respectfully allow them to do that, we had to prepare, like, who else is going to be able to work? How else are we going to manage to pull this off? Where are we going to do things? Guest judges, are you guys going to even be able to come now because they're in mourning? Locations, we had to pivot because whether it was the location was too close to Buckingham Palace and we couldn't get into it, or they were shutting down in mourning too. So there was a lot of that was happening. And again, we wanted to respect what was going on, but we also have a show to shoot and a timeline that we have to meet. So we were just all trying to balance and manage all of that. And then just trying to remember the second
Restaurant Wars.
Restaurant Wars. Okay, so Restaurant Wars. I will say this. For us, we were like, we're upping the ante. If we reached out to Claire, she's wonderful. She's been on the show before. And for her to allow us to go into her kitchen, a 3 Michelin star kitchen, how do you not jump at that opportunity and go, we are one of the best restaurants in the world? But we did have we always have plan B, plan C, plan Z. We also had an option to go into a space like any other Restaurant Wars where they build it from scratch and they would have to pick out the linens, pick out the plates, do all of that. But, once Claire was like, I can make this work, let's do this. It was a challenge in itself just because the space is in a part of town that's really difficult to shoot. And we could only take it over for one day. So we had to figure out how we are going to flip over this service in time and make sure that, we have enough time for both teams to be able to cook and to serve. But once it all started to align, we jumped at that opportunity to really, let's get into Claire's. For the chefs themselves, that to them was like, you don't get this opportunity ever. It really is like, wow, we're in this 3 Michelin star restaurant. And, our judge, Tom, has always talked about, like, I'd love to give them like just real staff. And I know we get crapped on a lot about staff and wait staff, and I totally get it. But we do hire professional people. We hire the catering staff, but they are the ones that do weddings. They do events. They do the Emmys. They do the Oscars. It's just when you're on a TV show and you've got very little time, it becomes this, like things just happen, But I see that all the time, everyone complaining about the staff, and I go, it's really not their fault. Like we pay them, they are professionals. It's just in a TV environment, things just get compressed, and it's just, there's so much to do, and the chefs have a lot going on. So trying to keep up with service and cook and all of that in a very small time to learn too. It's a challenge for them as well. They're thrown into the challenge. But yeah, so back to Tom going, hey, I would love to give them real staff, And so when Claire was able to give us her staff, we were just like, this is stepping it up. And I will say, it's also not every chef has done Restaurant Wars. So in a way, it's also it became, to me, more fair for everyone to be on an even playing field of like, okay, we're really focusing on food. We know that we've got the best staff, but it's still up to them. They had to still talk to their staff. They still had to tell them whether they told them what their menu was, or they still had to utilize them like they would in any restaurant. And you could see that, one team came in with a whole game plan, and the other team didn't lead as strongly as the other team when it came to with the staff, because at the end of the day, that did affect the dining room, whether we saw just people understanding what the menu was, what the concept was.
So there was a lot of factors that went into the conception of Restaurant Wars with Claire. And you've got to kind of thread the needle on 17 different factors, right? So I think a lot of people reached out to the podcast and messaged us being like, hey, language barrier. Maybe language barrier is the reason why they kind of did a little curveball in Restaurant Wars is the idea that, like, should they be directing and running a kitchen when there's language barrier issues there, and maybe that's it. But then I was thinking, well, that's every kitchen in America, or that's every kitchen in the world, is that they have people who speak different languages. And I didn't totally, side with that. And then there was the other one of the idea of like, hey, they didn't, not like we had, I think it was Tom and Victoire hadn't done Restaurant Wars before. And so it would be kind of like working at a disadvantage. And that made more sense to me, is that what you just said, is that some of the chefs had this experience before, some did not, even though they all participated in Top Chef around the world. And then there's when Claire opens up her kitchen and says, "Oh, this is like the best kitchen in the world, and the chefs are going to love it. And I'm opening up my restaurant for a day," which you never really get with a 3 Michelin star restaurant like that. There's probably a lot of factors in there. And then the Queen passing, I don't know if that had an impact on Restaurant Wars or not, but it definitely seemed on this episode that you guys did have to do an audible and having to do the Top Chef kitchen for the Indian feast. And that really, I thought you guys did a marvelous job of that episode. If you guys had the kind of curveball to reinvent this challenge, it really shined through that Magical Elves and Top Chef, the production team is just fantastic.
Yeah. I always say, one of the best chefs, like to be a top chef, you need to be able to pivot. I tell them that all the time. Like you just have to pivot. That's you never know what you're going to get what the challenge, what you're going to get delivered to you, what's going to come. But that's the same thing with us behind the scenes. We're literally always pivoting, going like, okay, this might not work, but how about this? This change, this is affecting us. We got to go this way. So for this challenge, like we had quickfire was always the quickfire. And then we always had the creative, and we were so excited to finally really do Indian food. I mean, you knew it. Everyone knew going to London, like we had to highlight it, but in what way, right? And what's going to be challenging. And, one of the things is their national dishes, chicken tikka masala. So we're like, oh, maybe we could do a fun quick fire with that. But we're like, no, we need to do an elimination challenge. We really need to celebrate this. This is, of course, cooking for Palma it is always daunting. I will say that.
Yeah, that for the second half of the competition is you're going to have.
Like, it's if you ask any chef, it's always, Indian food is one of the harder cuisines for them because they're not as familiar. There's a lot of spices. Even for me, there's just a lot of ingredients and spices. I'm going, oh, I'm not familiar with this because it's not in my everyday vocabulary or cabinet or pantry or the market. But it is amazing food. And so we found, I think we found the right fit of like even Thali, like we're just learning as well. And we're going, what's going to be interesting? If I'm going to learn about this, I want the audience to learn about that. I want the chef to learn about this. And that's what's exciting. Like we're always hoping like what we find excites us will excite millions of other people as well as our chefs. And so with this, we had Asma come, which was amazing. Literally, we were just so happy to have her.
By the way. She was outstanding. I didn't know that she was like an intellectual academic before she got into the culinary world. And you could just feel how she just has an energy about her.
Yeah. And so we were respectful for her too, because she came on and was willing to cook for the chefs. And that's always, I will say, when we ask a guest judge to come on the show, and if we ask them to actually prepare a dish, it's a tall ask of them too, because they're coming in from, wherever they're coming in from, they're not on our set, and then they have to make their food in a small amount of time. And, so we're always very grateful for any of our guests that come and are able to give our chefs the experience or a taste of their food. And for Asma, we wanted to make sure that she was doing this on location, that she was doing it in a kitchen she's comfortable with. It's a lot of food. So we were also wanted to make sure we were serving in a place that she was comfortable with as well. So, and she had a lot of contacts. And so we were going to serve at Taj, which is a hotel. There's a restaurant there. They were so lovely. We had the executive chef and the other chef from that hotel come, and we had the whole entire plan to shoot there. She was going to serve there the food, and the next day they were going to cook in the kitchen and serve there as well. Well, that's when it was literally, the location was right next to Buckingham Palace, and down to the wire. I think the day before, we just finally called the audible and said, you know what, we can't. It's the day of her funeral. There's going to be massive crowds. We can't get to the location. So we had to pivot. And thankfully, Asma had friends that were willing to give us their location to use. And this all happened literally, I think, within 24 hours, 36 hours. I'm looking back at my notes too. I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe we pulled this off all last minute, like back down to the wire where we're like, we're going to cook in the kitchen. We're going to serve in the stew room. Art department has to go dress it. Our wonderful culinary department, they had to get a tandoori oven at the last second to put into the kitchen because that's not something that we typically have. So all these little last movements that we had to do during the funeral too was, we're always amazed that we pull it off. We always pull it off, right? And like chefs have no idea. All they know is that they come, they're ready to cook, and that's all they need to be bothered by, right? But they don't know, like literally behind the scenes, like here we are trying to make sure that you have X, Y, Z. And so we did. I will say, I remember when Ozma was preparing her dishes for the chefs, and I was with her on the TV at the restaurant we're at. There was the funeral was happening. I remember just watching. I was looking up and going, okay, well, there's the Queen, coffin. There's Prince Harry. There's everyone here, and it's like this monumental thing happening. And then I'm like, okay, back to our show and our what's going on
this
here.
Global event of just like, of a thing you're going to remember for the rest of your life, where you were when you found out. And here you are just like, oh yeah, I gotta make sure that the tikka masala is prepared right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there was
Gagan Anand, he did the same thing where he had to prepare a dish and it made Sarah cry because it just hit a lot of emotional chords for her. I just wanted to say, I don't know if you're part of the recruiting of different culinary icons for the seasons, but this season has been particularly exceptional.
I have to agree. I do agree. I was just telling Donnie, our showrunner, same thing. She and I work very closely. We're very good friends. And I was like, this season, these guest judges are just phenomenal. And it's hard because when we do a domestic season, we're in the States, we can't fly everybody in from all over the world. But this season was an opportunity to actually be able to, because it was such a global season, and we wanted all our chefs to, we didn't want to just have American chefs. We wanted to reach out and go, we've been trying to go Gagan for 3 or 4 years. Shout out to John Adams. He's one of my producers. He's been working on trying to get him forever. And Gagan was, by the time he made it on the show, he was like, well, we're out. He's going to come all the way from, Thailand? No, Thailand, right. If he's coming all the way from Thailand, we're like, let's do a whole episode with him. And, we were so excited for him. And then just to see the chefs, their reactions, oh my goodness, like every single one that knew him was just floored. Like I cannot believe
Buddha was going to pass out. Yeah.
Buddha, Charbel, Ali, they were just like, oh my God. And I will say, when you watch the next episode where he comes into the stew room at the end, at the top of the next episode, that was all Gagan. He came to, we rapped with him.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah.
We rapped with him.
That was a total improv moment of.
We were saying goodbye, and he goes, can I please go and say hi to the chefs? I really just want, and we're like, of course. Usually it's like, it's a long day. It's been 12 hours. You really want to be here anymore, just because it's so long. And he was just so gracious. And he was like, I would love to talk to them. And he went in there, had a beer with them. And that was just really all Gagan. And it was just moments like that. Again, you don't get it anywhere else unless you're on Top Chef. And they were just excited. And the guest judges here, there's going to be even more for you guys to, look forward to later in the season. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I know you can't reveal anything going forward, but let's go back. What is Thi Nguyen's favorite challenge ever? In how many years have you been on the show?
5 seasons. I started with Denver. That was my first season, but then I had
Colorado. Yeah.
Oh, what's my favorite?
What's your favorite where it just all came together, or you had some element in there that you were like, oh, that was just great TV? Or maybe the hardest challenge that you remember pulling off and you needed a week. Something that comes to top of mind when you think back on your 5 years at Top Chef.
So I really loved last year's challenge when we did the doppelgangers. And it's more for me, it's the creative of it. Like yes. I love any challenge where it just really pushes their creativity and they make really amazing food. And the judges are happy. The chefs are doing an amazing job. The doppelganger one, which is an idea that it was borrowed from France. They did
Top
a
Chef
version.
France was doing.
They did a version of it.
That's right.
Yeah, and then we did our version of it. And I remember we pushed for a couple seasons. We were trying to get it on. And again, things might not make it one season, and it shows up two seasons later when we feel like it's right. And when we did that one, it was just I just remember thinking like I love that challenge. I love that challenge. And then to see it get executed and to see what they come up with. And they did such an amazing job. And that challenge, we kept thinking, it's so hard. It's a hard challenge. like let's keep it for later in the season. But when we did it in Houston, we were like, our chefs were so amazing. We were like, let's do it early in the season with more people, and they all pulled it off. Like every team did even if they didn't do a great job, as in they didn't win, they still did a great job. It was such so good food, and it's just so creative, and it makes it's. I love to see how their brains work and what they're able to put on a plate. So that was one of my favorite challenges.
I'm glad you brought that one up. That one was, when it happened, I was floored, because that one is also a visual challenge, right? It's something that as an audience at Top Chef, we don't get to eat the food, right? We're relying on the judges to eat for us. But we can see the dishes for sure. And the way that the doppelganger episode played out, where I could not believe some of the things that Buddha was able to pull off, and just like, how is that a totally reinvented, totally not even the same ingredients? How is that possible? And that one, I think, was one of my favorite all time. Like, forget the last 5 seasons, and watching this show for over a decade, it feels like that one was right up there. And of course, the blind taste test, or the blindfold where they have to pick up where the last person, left off. Those are always my favorite. And we still have a lot of episodes left, so maybe one of those pop up here. But last thing before we let you go is there like a whiteboard before the season of, hey, here are 5 things we want to hit, 5 challenges we want to hit this season? Or are you always pivoting where it's like, maybe we'll get a mise en place this year, and we'll kind of figure it out on the fly? Are you whiteboarding it before the season? Like, here are 5 things we need to have this year?
What we're whiteboarding is just all of the ideas. So we go through hundreds of ideas, and then we narrow it down. I mean, there's only so many, if it's 14 episodes and you've only got so many quick fires and elimination challenges, you can only fit so much. So we have a whiteboard of just a bunch of ideas and things that, here's this place we're visiting, what makes sense to this. And then we narrow it down, and then going into season, we have a whole, an idea, a map of what we're doing. When we say we pivot, it's pivoting to the things that come up, such as this location is no longer available, or this ingredient is not available, or something's happening that like we have to pivot to, or that makes a challenge change or fall out. But otherwise, like, we have an idea of what that season is going to look like. And it's just so that I had a chef ask me before too, like, hey, I made XYZ dish, and then this upcoming challenge happens later. Would you have done that challenge? Would you have changed that challenge? And I said, no, we don't do that. We don't, this is what we plan for. And like, just because you might've made something, and if that's the challenge later, you're going to have to then come up with another version of it, and, and then beat what you did before. We don't specify anything to a chef. It's really just, everything's always even. Everything's like an even playing field, that everyone comes into it with no advantage. No one's siding, no one's favoring. But there are challenges I'll go, oh, I think this chef might do well. Maybe that chef won't do well, but you never know. It's not until you're in it. I think the season of All Stars in 2017, there were just challenges that we had on the map. And I'd be like, oh, this chef would be great. Like, that might be a challenge that's great for them. And they kept getting, it just worked it worked out where they just kept getting eliminated before they would reach that challenge, that we would be like, oh, they might do great in this summer camp. They might do good. And they would literally get eliminated before. And it had nothing to, it's just how the cards were dealt. And we're just going, this is really interesting. Like, they didn't, it would have been nice to see them in this challenge, but that's just how it worked out.
All right, the floor is yours. Things that Pack Your Knives gets wrong, or that we've been wrong about, that you're like, I wanna get on the show and dispel this myth, or something that we routinely are a misconception that we have about Top Chef or what we're watching. The floor is yours, T. You can say whatever you want.
There's a couple things that, whether it's on this podcast or I've just heard. One of the things I remember hearing from, I don't think it's from this podcast, but I did hear is, do the chefs, when they go into the kitchen for the quick fires, are we assigning them stations? Are we lining them up? I've done that on other shows. We don't on this show. What do you mean? So when they enter the kitchen, they all line, they stand at a station, and people realize, they go, well, that's not fair if there's, someone's closer to where the display is. And are they purposely putting chefs there? we don't purposely put chefs anywhere. Like they get lined up outside the door, however randomly they get signed. And then when they come into the kitchen, wherever they land is wherever they land to us, right? And people really think that we put them in a certain place and then favor.
Lamar is always so close to the table.
Yeah,
or
like
something
you're
like
so
that
close to the table, and the person in the back has to run. And we're like,
Right.
we try to shake it up, so that it's always different. But we really don't assign them. I've done it on other shows where we do assign people when they walk in, so that you know exactly where they land. But this show it really is very real. It's one of the most realist competition shows I've ever worked on. And that's one of the things that I heard, and I go, no, we don't do that. Again, you guys are giving us a little bit too much, but it's because they do it on other shows, and they're going, oh, well, they do it on this show. I've been on that show, and that's what they do. And I'm like, no, we don't do that. That's one of the things we don't do.
As the police woman of the show, it feels like you have to be very fair. And I thought last week when we had Claire coming on and Buddha, there was like a little alarm bell that went off of like, that's not fair that they know each other and that he's worked for Claire. And then Buddha went out and did like 2 dishes and like was so exceptional, outstanding in that episode that it almost like superseded any sort of perceived bias that would happen. Did you have any moments of that? Like, hey, we're going to get Claire on. And that's happened before in the past that certain chefs, and Gabri had a relationship with one of, I forget her name, of the Spanish chefs or Mexican chefs that came on the judge. Do you always have to like, oh, those are some guardrails we got to be careful of, is not having a guest judge that will be too chummy with one of the chefs?
Yeah, it's here's the thing. The guest judges all come on and they know that they're as fair as possible. They don't care if they've known someone, they've worked with them. At the end of the day, it's about the food, right? This chef world is really small, just in general, around the world, like no matter what. And it even says in like their contracts that you may know someone, but that gives you no advantage. That gives you, but that's just the nature of the industry where everyone does know someone, like they've worked at an event together. There would be no
guest judge if there was no, if you couldn't know anybody on the show.
Yeah. And then we had one season where I think it was Gabriel, I believe, in Portland. He had worked at Tom's restaurant before at Kraft a long time ago. So again, there was no favoritism. It was so long ago, now Gabriel's doing his own food, but we do always make sure we call it out so that all the chefs know, they all feel they've been heard. And it's still, at the end of the day, the food, it's really about the food. It does not matter if they've worked with you, they know you, they've babysat your kids. And I'm not saying that happened, but like things like that, it does not matter because there's so much integrity in the show and fairness. And that is what's important, is to make sure all the chefs feel things are fair and they feel heard. And, there is a lot of integrity on the show. And I think that's what makes the show so special, down to like, you hear about Tom and Padma and Gail, they always talk about like the food is the food. They judge the food. That's why the food is served hot. There's other shows where we've been on where food sits for 45 minutes before it gets tasted. Things like, we really try to protect what the chefs are doing. We're asking them to do a lot, and we want to make sure we honor that. And so that's something that I can look back and be very proud of the show too, because we are making something that we feel like is just, it's not only great TV, but it's a great homage to the industry that that we're shining a light on.
They wouldn't keep coming back if they felt like you had favoritism, or that Tom likes a particular chef or Padma likes a particular chef, or everything's kind of set up for a particular winner. I think going into this season, everyone expected Begonia to be at the finish line, and the fact that she goes out early speaks to that integrity, where it's like, yeah, she might be a Michelin star chef, but and I think on draft boards, and I'm sure you love seeing just like all the fantasy drafting that goes on with Top Chef, she was up there with Buddha, and then she goes out like week 6 or whatever it was, episode 6, and you're just sitting there being like, if Top Chef was rigged, or if they had favorites or anything like that, that would never happen, right? That would never happen. And I think it is part of the reason why we love this show, is the integrity of it, and that we can keep guessing. Like, I thought Gabri was going to go home this week and Sarah was going to win, and then at the final judges table, we learn more information. Then it's like, oh yeah, I get it. And if it was predictable, there was no element of surprise, and if it felt like things were moving in a certain direction, I don't think it would have the lasting endurance that it's had. And I think that's one of the strongest legacies of Top Chef, is that as we watch, we're always surprised, or we joke about the analytics about risotto or serving first at Restaurant Wars, but it's not always predictable, and that's what's great about reality TV.
Another little thing, another nugget is you're saying serving first. We down to the wire, every little thing has been thought about. So when I say fairness, who's serving first? We do an order. We do a random selection where we literally pick out. I will show you. I brought it here because the chefs love this. We have little ping pong balls with their names on them, and we pick out. We literally draw everything, like the service order. If they're picking their plates, we have an order of pick. It's just so everything's fair, and they're not feeling like it, and they love it. Like they'll be like, "Oh, where's the ping pong balls? Like it's time to draw balls and stuff." So it's we think about every little thing of like how to make this fair. And like this last episode, Omar had 30 more minutes than everyone else. That was his advantage, but they all have access. It's a pantry, right? It's a shared pantry because they didn't go shopping. So it was like, how do we make this fair? But so what you don't see is we gave them 10 minutes to shop first off camera, and they grabbed things so everybody could go in there at the same time. Then we stop down. Then the cook really happens, and Omar goes in first for 30 minutes, and then everybody else goes. And then after that, the pantry shared amongst everyone. But little things like that, so that the chefs never feel like, well, that's not fair. Omar gets to go in first. What if he takes everything? It's guys. Everybody has 10 minutes to just grab whatever you want. That's the things that you can keep, put it away. And then once you guys go in because everyone's going like, now it's Amar, then it's the next person. So the last person's like, well, it's not fair for me. But as long as we gave them the opportunity to all shop at the same time, again, you guys don't need to see that, like the little logistics that we do. But for their sake, we're always looking like, how can we make this feel that they all have this equal opportunity to make the food that they need to make, So
that's so fascinating, because in the NBA world where we cover, the literal ping pong balls decide who's going to get the number one pick. And it's this ritual every year, this ceremony of who's going to get the number one pick. And it's decided by ping pong balls, this huge thing that is going to shape the entire NBA for the next decade is decided by, ping pong balls. So you guys have taken a little page out of the NBA, which is so funny to see, just like the ping pong balls of Top Chef. I had no idea that you did that.
Yeah, that's how we draft our chefs too on the season. I'm kidding. That's not what we do.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. That'd be amazing. We really appreciate having you on, Thi, and especially for the fact that I'm sure there's so much that happens behind the scenes that you wish got to air to show how you guys do your work. Like, show the work that goes into every episode, all of the planning, all the chaos, all the threading of those needles. And I think it serves our audience really well to have you come on here and explain everything that goes into the episode and all that fairness and the ping pong balls and the 10 minutes that each chef gets behind the scenes to have a fair playing field. I feel like that's serving the audience. It's a remarkable thing that you guys have been able to endure for 19, 20 seasons. And that's the stuff, the little things that keep it going. So thank you for all that. And thank you for sharing that that side of the competition. Yeah.
There's also something called Secrets Revealed that's on BravoTV.com. And that has behind the scenes from every season. Well, pretty much every season, it's like they interview different staff to ask about like how did you do this challenge, or how do you break it? It's really interesting. If anyone who likes the behind the scenes stuff, if you do want to check out the clips, every season there's different people doing it. I mean, I've done it, everyone's done it, we've all done it. It's just, and now we're trying to give other people, other departments and other voices heard too, which is interesting. It's so fun to see. Now we see we see our camera, we see our tech person, they're all integral to the show. And it's nice to give them a voice too, so.
Well, thank you for lending your voice to Pack Your Knives.
Of course.
We've been trying to get you on for a long time, and we appreciate you sharing your wisdom. And thank you, more importantly, to all the work you do for the show. We love it.
Well, thank you. And hope you enjoy the rest of the season, because there's still a lot more to go.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to pry all that information out of you, and you're going to, put your foot down, and you're going to say, I forget you even talked to me. We're off the grid. It's so funny, like thinking about, I would fumble every time. All the stuff that you know about what's going to happen, I would fumble it. Just, I don't know how you guys do it. And all the chefs, they're incredible. So thank you so much, Thi. Magical Elves and the Top Chef production crew. Thanks so much. And we are really looking forward to the rest of the season. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
Final thoughts, Tom, before we go out.
I think this was a good rebound from Restaurant Wars. I thought it was a excellent episode. I thought the Indian Thali with Asma Khan, I thought it just was and I know there's a curveball with the Queen Elizabeth passing. The fact that it altered the production of the show. They had a place that they were going to go to do the Indian challenge, but they had to kind of audible and do it in the Top Chef kitchen. So I thought that they did a really good job this episode, and maybe I was too harsh with Restaurant Wars last week, or maybe we were a little too hard on the show, but this was a good rebound. Really like this episode, Kevin.
For Tom Abistro, this is Kevin Arnovitz, and this is At Your Knives.